When you push that throttle, do you have a plan of what will you do if something's go wrong, if you lose power? We know it is very unlikely it will happen, but it is always better to have a plan just in case it happens. In this video we'll show you some before takeoff tips and post-flight inspection tips. Getting ready for the flight. If I'm going to go to gravel bars or dirt, I will lower the tire pressure, or I will add air if I'm going to go to paved runways. This is an important one, especially for Cessnas. You don't want your seat to come backwards when you're taking off. It can cause a bad accident. You can have a seat lock, so you push your seat forward until it hooks, and then you can push your seat lock, so it's a double precaution. In the Cessna 170 I have a seat lock. In the Cessna 182 I have the ones from McFarland that will stop your seat if you're going backwards. This is the one I have in the Cessna 170. You push the red lever and the lock works, and this one is attached to the seat rail, so if you slide backwards it will stop it. Before takeoff checklist, what I'm going to do if the engine quits or I lose power. Definitely land straight ahead if you are less than 1,000 feet, and depending on the airplane, of course. Don't try to do the impossible turn. So as a before takeoff, do that checklist in your mind. What I'm going to do if I lose power. Land straight ahead if it's lower than 500 feet. I practice the impossible turn at 500 feet, and it's a very difficult maneuver, and it's also very different if you are practicing and you know it's happening than if it is a surprise. I do not recommend it unless you are 1,000 feet or above. If you are at less altitude, it's better to have a controlled crash into trees or a road than spin and stall. Everybody knows how to do their pre-flight. Also, they have the before takeoff checklist, so these tips are just extra ones I've learned through the years. This is another one before takeoff. First you get in the cockpit. I'm going to show it in the CJ6 channel because every airplane is different. This airplane has a pneumatic system for brakes, starter, landing gear and flaps. So having air is very important. It has a air tank that stores the air. Now priming, air is on, acceleration to start it. Setting the parking brake because my hands will be busy. This tip is for carbureted engines. Once you start and warm it up, I push the carb heat. You can see the carburetor temperature gauge here. The temperature increases, and if the RPM starts to increase, means there was a little bit of ice. So I let it run like this for a while until the carburetor is warm. Then I reduce all the way to idle, and I want the idle to stay steady with carb heat on at the minimum RPMs the engine can hold. If the engine cannot hold the minimum RPMs and quits, I will not fly. I will just go back to the hangar and check it out. So then you go flying. You go do aerobatics. The airplane is subject to G-forces. high speeds, you're having fun, or you can go fly in the backcountry where are rocks, mud, and it's very hard on the tires, the tail wheel or the nose wheel. Rocks fly everywhere and can damage some parts of the airplane. The propeller is also very vulnerable from rocks, so it's something we have to take into consideration during the flights. And it is not just backcountry flying, it can be a paved street, so always the airplane is subject to high speeds and the environment. That's why every time after I finish a flight, I do a post-flight inspection. The idea of a post-flight inspection is that if you find something, you have time to fix it before you do your next flight. So now I'm going to show you the post-flight inspection I do on the CJ6 Nanchang and also on the Cessna 182 and Cessna 170. It's a little bit different because in the case of the Nanchang, it's a very different airplane and there is some things I want to check. In the Nanchang, since it has a pneumatic system, it is very important for me to check the air before landing, because if there is no air, there will be no brakes, no flaps, and no landing gear. So that's an important step before landing on this airplane. Very different from most airplanes. Nanchang has a 9-cylinder radial engine and leaks oil. So after flight I go with a flashlight, look inside the cowling for oil leaks or anything that got loose, because you do high G's, high speeds, and some things can get loose in there. So I check for everything after the flight. Also check in front of the cylinders to see if there is any leaks, a cylinder getting loose, or the vents if they are damaged or something like that. Check the propeller hub for grease or oil leaks. Now I'll go check on the other side again for leaks or anything that might have gotten loose during the flight. In the Cessna 182, after the flight, I go check for the VGs on the wings and also under the horizontal stab. You can see mine is beaten up because of the rocks, and sometimes they can knock off some of the VGs, so I check for that. Also after the flights, I like to check the conditions of the tires, both in the Cessna 170 or the Cessna 182. I look for cuts and to see if they're in good shape for the next flight. I also check for the brake pads, to see the condition of the pads, to see if we are good for the next flight. Again, in the 170, I check for the VGs, that they're all in place and I have not lost any of the VGs during the flight. In all my airplanes, I have an angle of attack indicator, Alpha Systems, and I check the prop to make sure it's clear of debris or dirt. In the case of the Cessna 170, I also inspect the tail wheel to make sure everything is in place, nothing is cracked or broken. Hope you guys enjoy, and please join me on Patreon to support Backcountry 182. Thanks for watching. It is very easy to join, to be a patron of Backcountry 182. Go to the YouTube channel. On the right hand side there is the link, and then it takes you to the Patreon page. Here you can see all the tiers and what is all about the support for Backcountry 182 YouTube channel. Also, another way to access the Patreon link is in the description of the video I put in YouTube. On Backcountry 182 channel there is a link for Patreon, so just click on that and it will take you to the page. Thank you for watching, and it will be amazing if you guys are interested and give some support.